Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over my picks for the top 10 best drift cars in Grand Theft Auto Online. I figured since it was a tuners sort of themed week, this would actually go along pretty well with that. So anyways, we're going to be ranking my picks for the top 10 best drift cars in Grand Theft Auto Online. Some of these cars are going to be really cheap and therefore easy to get into drifting. Some of them are going to be a little bit more expensive and be very good at drifting. Some of them are going to be kind of in between. Overall, it's going to be a pretty interesting list. If you guys enjoyed the video, a like is of course appreciated. If not, dislike. Subscribe to my channel if you guys are new. Let's go for 5,000 likes on this video, and let's go ahead and get started with number 10. At number 10, we have the Karen Futo, coming in at $9,000. The OG drift machine in Grand Theft Auto Online. I remember the days when this was the only thing you could drift, basically. I remember people shooting the wheels on it to lower it and stuff like that, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I remember the Futo was just the drift car. This will get you into the door to drifting for a very, very cheap startup price of only $9,000, or of course you can just steal one off the street. And it also has a little bit of customization, which is pretty cool too, more than you would think. How could I leave the OG Futo off of a top 10 best drift cars list? I mean, that would just be criminal. So of course, getting it started with the Karen Futo. Next up at number 9, we have the Bravado Gauntlet Hellfire, coming in at $745,000. This is probably the easiest car to get to lose traction in Grand Theft Auto Online, but holding a slide with it will definitely take some patience and some practice. The Hellfire is super easy to drift though, just because it simply has way too much power for those rear wheels to handle. This thing will slide out on you pretty much at any opportunity, so it's not really that great of a car to just drive around, but if you do want to slide around, the Bravado Gauntlet Hellfire is going to be an excellent car for you. Plus, it's also got some good customization and everything like that. A lot of people are probably going to comment on this and be like, well, the Gauntlet Hellfire actually power slides, it doesn't really drift. Shut up, it drifts, bro. Just be quiet. The Gauntlet Hellfire is a sick car though, and for only $745,000, you can't really go wrong with it, and it's going to drift even easier than the Karen Futo. It's just going to take some time to actually master it, that's all. At number 8, we have the Benefactor Schlagen GT, coming in at $1,300,000. The Schlagen, in a way, is kind of like a more refined Mercedes-Benz version of the Hellfire. It can actually go around corners regularly if needed. However, it can break traction super easily, and I do find that double clutching with this car is actually super simple as well. So you can use that to your advantage when it comes to drifting in GTA Online, but I do find this thing is pretty well balanced for drifting. Despite the engine being so far out over the front wheels, I think it actually does pretty good when it comes to drifting. Definitely an easier car to drift, definitely easier because of how much power it has, not so much because it's set up to be a great drift car. But it's a really fun car to drive around. It's definitely a really fun car to drift around as well. Definitely one that I would look into if you guys are interested. Next up at number 7, we have the Classy Drift Yosemite, coming in at $981,000 if you got the trade price. Now if you don't, it's going to run you $1,308,000. The Drift Yosemite is exactly what it says it is, now that it has the drift tuning modification that is available for it. The Drift Yosemite before wasn't that much of a drift car, it just didn't have traction at all. So I mean, I guess you could drift it, you definitely could, but with the drift tuning modification it did become a little bit better. With that being said though, it's still one of the worst of the cars that has the actual drift tuning modification that Rockstar added back in December with the Chop Shop DLC. You can drift it pretty easily, it does break traction, kind of okay. It's not the greatest car to drift though, and well, I guess technically it's a truck, it's not even a car. It's not the greatest truck to drift ever, but it's still better than the last 3 cars that we just talked about. So I had to include it on this list, but it's the worst of the cars with the drift tuning modification. So anyway, let's talk about the next one of the cars with that drift tuning mod. Next up at number 6, we have the Annis Euros, coming in at $1,350,000 with the trade price. Now, if not, it's going to run you $1,800,000. Kind of on the expensive side, and the Annis Euros has always kind of disappointed me in Grand Theft Auto Online. However, despite this, it can drift relatively well, but in true Euros fashion, it has to disappoint me in the fact of it being underwhelming when drifting. I don't really know how to describe it other than the car feels a lot more loose than the other drift cars in GTA Online, which is very sad. that Rockstar did this to this car, because I love the 370Z, but I feel like this car has been done so dirty by Rockstar multiple times now, and it's just kind of a shame. If you have an Annis Euros, you could try out the drift tuning modification for it, but it's probably just going to disappoint you, so I'd honestly go for one of the cars that's a little bit higher on this list. So with that being said, let's talk about number 5. At number 5, we have the Declassy Drift Tampa, coming in at $995,000. The cheapest way to get into the drift tuning modification if you're interested in GTA Online, unless of course you have the trade price for the Yosemite, then you're going to save about 14 grand. But the Drift Tampa has grown on me quite a bit since the last time I talked about it, with the drift tuning modification equipped on it. I do actually think it's quite good for drifting. However, it is still a huge vehicle, which does give you a bit of a challenge in the tight and busy streets of Los Santos, especially weaving in and out of traffic and stuff like that. However, it does feel better to me than it did the last time I drifted it. I do think it's a pretty good car now. However, that size is definitely its biggest issue. But braking traction and everything like that, holding slides in the Drift Tampa, is actually pretty easy once you have that drift tuning modification on it. Just make sure you fully upgrade the vehicle before you equip the drift tuning modification. Pretty cool car. Rest in peace, Ken Block. Let's move on to number 4. At number 4, we have the Annis Remus, coming in at $1,027,500 to $1,370,000 if you don't have the trade price. The Annis Remus is one of the better drift cars in Grand Theft Auto Online, and once it's customized, I think it's also one of the best looking cars in all of GTA Online as well. This thing is a little bit on the longer side, making it slightly harder to drift, both generally and in tighter spaces, like through traffic, for example, or in like an alleyway, stuff like that. However, it does break traction pretty easily despite its longer stature. A lot of the long wheelbase sort of cars tend to have that issue where they can't really break traction as easily, but this thing is not like that, and it does allow you to drift pretty nicely. Overall, I would say it's a pretty great vehicle, and it's definitely one that I recommend if you're looking to get into drifting in GTA Online. At number 3, we have the Dinka Jester RR, coming in at $1,477,500 with the trade price. If not, it's going to run you $1,970,000, making it the most expensive car with the drift tuning modification in Grand Theft Auto Online, which is kind of crazy to think about. But the Dinka Jester RR is a phenomenal drift car because it is just a little bit smaller, and it has gained a few positions since the last time I talked about it. And that big factor for why it's kind of gained those positions is just the fact that it's a lot smaller than some of the other cars on this list, allowing you to just navigate between cars, between light poles, trees, whatever you're drifting nearby. You can get past them a lot easier in a car that's a little bit smaller, and the Jester RR is really great for that. Plus, it's a Tuner's DLC car, obviously, so it's going to have a ton of customization as well, allowing you to make it look really cool while also being able to drift it as well. Now, a lot of the cars on this list are going to be Tuner's DLC cars, but I just figured I'd mention that with the Jester RR, because I do find its customization in particular is really, really great. Definitely a cool car, definitely one to pick up. Look into it for sure. At number 2, we have the Annis ZR350, coming in at $1,211,750 if you got the trade price. If not, it's going to run you $1,615,000. The ZR350 is an awesome car generally in GTA, but when they added the drift tuning modification to it, it became just that much better. This vehicle is of course based off of the Mazda RX-7, a fan favorite, which is super sick, and it was also released with the Tuner's DLC, so it has a ton of customization, and it also has stance mode, which on this car in particular offers a really crazy speed glitch. So if you don't have the drift tuning modification on it, you can stance it and it will go insanely fast in a straight line. It's a very versatile car, it's very good. You can have it to be, a full-blown drift car. You can also use it as kind of a race car in a way as well, because when it doesn't have the drift tune and when it's not stance, it's actually pretty good through the corners as well. Overall, really good car. Definitely look into the ZR350. For an honorable mention, we have the Fathom FR36 coming in at $1,610,000. The Fathom FR36 has drift tuning as well, and a ton of great customization. But with that being said, it is the only car from the DLC that had drift tuning on it, which was a little on the disappointing side. It's still an awesome car, and I'm thrilled to have the G35 in game, but I do feel like some of the customization did fall a little short, like the front bumper options that are basically all the same bumper option, but they just might have canards or a slightly different splitter or like stuff like that. I feel like they kind of missed with it. Like the customization is still good, but it just could be a little bit better, is kind of what I'm saying. Overall, it's still a cool car. It's still one that I would recommend looking into for sure, especially if you're interested in the drift tuning stuff. But at number 1, we do have the Car Addict GTX coming in at $1,192,500 to $1,590,000 if you don't have the trade price. The Futo GTX is what I have found to be the best drift car in Grand Theft Auto Online, at least as far as the new drift tuning goes. In terms of without drift tuning, this car probably wouldn't even have made the list. In fact, I'm actually a serial Car Futo GTX hater. I've hated this car ever since it came out, but I cannot deny the fact that this thing is by far the best car with the drift tuning modification added to it in all of GTA Online. It's so insane, and a large part of it is due to the fact that this car is a tiny little shoebox of a vehicle. It is so small that you can just fit between cars, lampposts, buildings, whatever you want to do. This thing makes it easier than any other car on this list to drift. And I know ease isn't exactly, you know, the mark of like a good thing, but in terms of just being able to hop in a car and drift, there's nothing better than the Car Futo GTX. This thing's insane. You guys should definitely pick one of these up if you're interested in drift tuning modifications and drifting in GTA Online. Look no further than this thing because it is by far the best. Anyway guys, there you have it. That has been it for my list of the top 10 best drift cars in Grand Theft Auto Online in 2024. Let me know what you thought of my list in the comment section down below. Comment a 7 if you made it to the end of the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, dislike if you didn't, of course. Subscribe to my channel if you guys want to see more content like this, as well as a vast variety of other content, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.